Good morning, everyone. Hello, and welcome to ImpactWeather's Winter Weather Webinar. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Dave Gorham, Senior Meteorologist on the Client Services team and host of ImpactWeather's webinar series. I'm here with your presenter today, Fred Schmude, plus Jennifer Groff, who is at the controls of our Twitter chat. During today's presentation, we're going to talk about the ongoing winter weather pattern. And even though the official start of winter is the 21st, which is this coming Sunday, I think we can all agree that we've actually been experiencing winter for quite some time already. In fact, the Buffalo snowstorm that dropped 7 feet of snow and trapped so many residents in their homes, that was already a month ago. Our guest today is Senior Meteorologist Fred Schmude. Fred is our winter weather and long-range expert, and his presentation today will hit the highlights of the global patterns and the seasonal forecast. At our previous webinar, Fred was talking about the early and expected ongoing winter season, and I think he's still generally bullish on the winter season. Before Fred begins, for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, let me tell you a little bit about who we are, who Impact Weather is. Impact Weather serves as the weather department for hundreds of corporations around the globe, enabling them to make the smartest business decisions when faced with weather-related challenges and threats. As a round-the-clock, full-service weather department, Impact Weather's team of meteorologists and business continuity experts offers site-specific forecasting and modeling, weather alerts, and even business continuity tools that are custom configured for each of our clients. We are proud to serve clients in the oil and gas, energy, marine and offshore, banking, insurance, retail and manufacturing, healthcare, petrochemical, hospitality, and the construction industries, to name quite a few. If you have any questions during the presentation, use the questions box under GoToMeeting. We're using Twitter to help you get the most of this presentation, so just log into your Twitter account and use the hashtag ImpactWebinar so that you can ask questions, share ideas, and discuss the outlook with the Impact Weather team of experts and other like-minded professionals who are also logged into Twitter. As I mentioned, our presentation today, our presenter today is Senior Meteorologist Fred Schmude. Fred is the manager of Impact Weather's Stormwatch team. He is also our long-range expert, our winter weather specialist, our global patterns and teleconnections specialist, and he's our resident geologist thanks to his dual majors in both meteorology and geology. And if that's not enough, he's also our solar expert. Fred's been with the company since 1990 and is typically our go-to guest for all the webinars that deal with the end of the winter season and the long-range outlooks. I think, Fred, that's it. But before I do that, let me just quickly say that at the bottom of your screen, you may see it says Talking David Gorham. That's me. It will continue to say that even when Fred's talking. We have both microphones running through a soundboard, and that soundboard is into my login through GoToWebinar and GoToMeeting. So you'll see my name always, even when Fred is talking. So I hope that doesn't cause too much confusion. Fred, it looks like you're ready, so I'll turn the microphone over to you. So go ahead.
Very good. Well, thanks so much, Dave. Thanks for that nice introduction. And let's go ahead and take a look at the overall contents of what we'll be talking about today. On these webinars, I like to, of course, talk about the past and flow into the future. So we'll take a quick look at what's happened since the 1st of November through the middle of December. Also going to look at some of the snowfall anomalies across North America. Those are critical in deciphering long-term temperature patterns as we go through the winter months. Also have a brief rundown of some of the tools I use to make some of these long-range forecasts. That flow pattern index, it's very critical in deciphering the speed of the flow pattern and how much cold or warm air is going to affect the lower 48 during the winter. Also take a look at some of our key water temperature anomaly trends, particularly across the Pacific Ocean. Also the risk of El Nino. That's very important in deciphering patterns as well. Also look at some of the computer models out there, including the European model and the Brazilian model. Have our detailed weekly forecast through the 2nd of January of the new year 2015. White Christmas outlook. I know everybody's concerned about Christmas right now and if there will be a white Christmas. Also have a detailed look at January and then right through June of next year. Also, as typical, we'll take a look at drought conditions across the U.S., soil moisture, and hopefully there'll be a little bit of time for some questions right at the end. Here's our overall flow pattern that we're seeing, or what we saw, I should say, during November. Anywhere you see that blue or purple shading, that's lower than normal pressure. You can see that across eastern North America. Higher than normal pressure represented by that yellow and red shading. And notice that covered most of Alaska and western North America. And there's the storm track during November. Notice it originated in north central Canada from the Arctic region southward right down into the eastern United States. That brought down some extremely cold temperatures. As a matter of fact, temperatures averaged well below normal generally east of the Rockies, particularly across the Mississippi Valley and the southeast. Matter of fact, the November temperatures were one of the coldest Novembers that we've seen over the past 30, 40 years. Even though it might not have been the coldest, it ranked up there as either the second or the third coldest in Novembers during that time frame. It was warmer than normal from California up towards Alaska, thanks to that blocking high pressure. Here was our November forecast. Not too bad. We were forecasting below normal temperatures from the plains on east and higher than normal temperatures across most of the west. They just turned out to be a little bit more extreme across the eastern United States during November. Precipitation during November, well above normal across Texas, as you can see by that blue and purple shading. There's the graph there on the right as far as percent above normal. Across Florida into the Carolinas, Montana, higher than normal snowfall across there. But look at the drier than normal conditions, particularly across California through the Central Plains, Great Lakes east, and even the middle part of the Deep South. And there's that wetter than normal weather down south, snowier conditions across the northern Rockies. Our precipitation outlook for November that we had issued above normal across the Deep South. It looks like it turned out to be a little drier than normal across that area. We nailed California, though, below normal there, and even across parts of the Great Lakes as well. Some of the memorable snowstorms we saw during November and December. Look at this one that occurred during Thanksgiving, including the West Virginia mountains up through New England. Even though it was inland from the Atlantic seaboard, this was one of the big snowstorms that affected Buffalo, you can see right there. But some of these areas saw 2, 3, even 4 feet or more of snow during this particular snowstorm. Also on December the 10th, we had a fairly big snowstorm affect most of New York State up in New England. Again, notice they did not affect the coastal areas of New England and down towards the mid-Atlantic. Most of these snow events have been just inland. What have we seen so far during December? This is through the middle of December. A big pattern reversal. We've seen higher than normal pressure as represented by this yellow and red shading across most of North America. But look at the lower than normal pressure just west of California. That has shoved that jet stream eastward, bringing in a lot of moisture across California and much more rainfall across that area, much needed rainfall. That's bringing a little bit of relief to the drought conditions across that area. You can see those milder than normal temperatures across most of the west. It's also depicted by this graphic. These are temperature anomalies represented by that yellow and green shading, as much as 2 to 4 degrees centigrade above normal. That's roughly 4 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see near normal temperatures across most of the eastern United States so far during December, with the colder than normal weather or temperatures across northern and eastern Canada. Here was our outlook for December. Even though we're only halfway through the month, we were calling for below normal or much below normal across the eastern United States and New England, above normal across most of the west. And you can see we're not too far from that right now. And I do hope, or I do think, we will see some hope for some colder than normal weather building across the eastern and southern United States as we go to the last week of December. Could be significantly colder. I'll have more on that in just a moment. So we may actually pan out to being fairly close to this chart by the end of the month. Precipitation so far during December, drier than normal from Texas over towards Georgia and the Carolinas. Wetter than normal, you can see that from California over towards the Central Plains, even New England, where they've had that inland snow and coastal rain. It does look like, though, parts of the Deep South will see a very heavy dousing of rain as we go through the next 2 to 3 days, particularly from December 18th through the 20th. Associated with the storm system. See those drier than normal conditions across the Deep South, parts of the northern plains, and that wetter than normal weather across the plains over towards New England, including California. Here was our precipitation forecast for December across most of the Deep South from California over towards the Deep South, above normal, below normal across the Pacific Northwest into the Great Lakes area. And it looks like we're going to be fairly close to that, I think, by the end of the month. Snowfall anomalies. I've talked about this before. Very critical to follow this. We've had the 5th highest since 1965 as far as snowfall anomalies across the northern hemisphere during November. These are very critical in deciphering temperature patterns. The more snow cover you have, generally the colder and more widespread the air masses can develop across that snow cover region. Look what's happened in North America, though, so far this year. November, the highest since 1966. Again, a precursor of what is possibly to come as we go through the winter weather season. Of course, our factors that we look at in making the long-range weather forecast, we have our short-term teleconnections we look at. This is like the NAO. This is the North Atlantic Oscillation. Look at computer models, atmospheric blocking, and this southern storm track, which is depicted by the El Ninos. The stronger the El Nino, the stronger your southern storm track will be. We'll also look at longer-range computer models and water temperature anomalies. And even the sun, we'll look at that for making some of those long-range weather forecasts. But, of course, these are the two main qualifiers that I look at for making the forecast I use in this presentation. But also the sun is very critical, and it does look like as we go through time, particularly over the next 5, 10, maybe even 15 years, we're looking at a weakening solar trend, which could lead to colder conditions across the Earth and the northern hemisphere. Here's our total, our TSI index. This is actually our what we call our flow pattern index. Anytime this is above 0, we see a higher than normal flow pattern that extends across North America. And you generally have a faster flow pattern, produces milder Pacific air and less storminess, while anything below 0 produces colder air and more storminess across North America. And you can see on the bottom of the graph, generally when this has dropped down below 0, we've seen a lot more severe weather action as represented by these large red S's. You can see there was one here in the middle to latter part of November, several in mid to late October. And you see some winter storms, and these big A's are large Arctic outbreaks. You can see when the flow pattern has dropped below 0, we've seen more winter storms as well. Did have one major winter storm across New England as we went through the early to middle part of November when the flow pattern, though, was above 0. Here's our current trends. Of course, El Nino across the tropical Pacific. Anywhere you see this orange and yellow shading, that's higher than normal water temperatures across the Pacific Ocean, and that represents a developing El Nino across that area. Also, this key water temperature anomaly off the west coast of North America, this is the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. When it's in its positive or warm phase, that's a precursor of higher than normal atmospheric blocking across that area, which could bring down much colder air across North America. Also look at the Atlantic Ocean at times, and also even the Indian Ocean, which can affect the El Nino development across the central and eastern Pacific. This particular graphic shows the El Nino forecast. Anything above this dashed red line, that's 0.5 degrees centigrade or higher than normal, and that basically represents your El Nino territory. You can see each of the different computer models, the European model, this is the JMA's, the Japanese model, here's NOAA, this is the American model. You can see all of those are above that dashed red line, and the average anomaly for all of those computer models is about 0.8 degrees centigrade above normal, which is clearly in the El Nino territory. As we go through February, a very similar trend. All those models are generally above the 0.5 degrees centigrade threshold, and the overall average is about 0.7 above normal as we go through the middle part of winter. Here's a water temperature depth anomaly. This is depth here on the left in meters, and on the bottom of the panel is our longitude. So on the left would be Australia, and on the right would be South America. And as we scale through time here, from September through October and November, you can see there's orange and red shading representing warmer than normal water percolating up from the lower depths of the ocean up towards the surface with time. And you can see that right there at the end, a lot of orange and red shading, higher than normal water temperatures across the eastern Pacific. And it looks like that trend is going to continue. This is the same graphic, but just a bird's eye view. You can see Australia there on the left, South America on the right, and right there in the equator region, or the equatorial regions of the Pacific, you can see a lot of orange and at times red shading representing higher than normal water across the central Pacific as we go through time. And this is another graph I'd like to look at. This is our air temperature anomalies across the polar regions north of 80 degrees north. The red shading represents your anomalous temperatures during this time frame. The green shading is your normal temperature trace. On the bottom is your Julian day. Day 0 would be January 1 of 2014 up to the current time, which are right now about Julian day 350 or so. But you can see last winter, as we went through January and February, we had a lot of warm air across the polar regions, and that was because a lot of that air was being shoved southward into North America. Notice the exact same trend is continuing as we go through November and December this year. Warmer than normal temperatures across the Arctic regions. That's a sign that that air is being transported southward into the lower latitudes, including North America. So that's a trend we'll be watching very closely during the season. Here's our forecast. This is the European model. This red shading represents higher than normal pressure. This is atmospheric blocking. You can see North America there, the United States and Canada. Then right there across western Canada into Alaska, across the Arctic region, that's a sign that Arctic air is being shoved southward into the lower 48. And this is a forecast out through January, February, and March of 2015. Excuse me. And here's the temperature anomaly using the same computer model. It's showing warmer than normal temperatures across western and northern North America, near to below normal temperatures. Look at that across most of eastern and central North America, extending into southern and southeast Canada. Here's our American, this is what we call the climate forecasting system model. It's a climate model put out by the Weather Service, and it's showing temperatures well above normal across most of western and northern North America. But notice it does have near normal temperatures across most of the eastern and southern United States. I think overall that's probably going to trend below normal as we go through time. Here's the Brazilian model. It's showing a lot of blocking high pressure across most of Canada into western North America. Lower than normal pressure south of Alaska, across most of the southeastern United States. Again, with that type of flow pattern, it's indicating Arctic air heading south down into the central and eastern United States. Here's our forecast. First, for the first week or over the next week through Christmas Day, it does show higher than normal pressure across most of northern and eastern Canada and just west there of the California region. Lower than normal pressure across most of eastern and central North America, across most of Alaska. There's your main storm track extending from Washington State southward down into the lower Mississippi Valley. Then it buckles sharply northward towards the Great Lakes. So we see a small area of cooler than normal temperatures across parts of the southern Rockies over towards the mid-Atlantic states, but higher than normal temperatures across most of western North America into Canada, maybe as much as 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit above normal across most of the Hudson Bay region and even over a small part of Texas. Unsettled and potentially stormy conditions from the Texas Gulf Coast over towards the mid-Atlantic, across the Pacific Northwest into western Canada, and also across parts of northern Canada. Drier than normal conditions from California over towards Colorado and from the Ohio Valley over towards southeast Canada. Talking about severe weather, it does look like there will be a risk of severe storms and isolated tornadoes across parts of the Texas and Louisiana coast on December the 19th, from Florida over towards the eastern Carolina on December 23rd into Christmas Eve, and then also, if you can believe it, from eastern Virginia up through southern New Jersey as we go through the December the 24th or Christmas Eve during that time frame. So could see strong winds and isolated tornadoes. Here's the historical probability of a white Christmas. You can see across parts of the central Rockies, the northern Great Lakes, it's near 100%. You can see the legend there on the bottom. And that drops down to only about a 10 to 20% chance from Kansas over towards southern Ohio. And here's our current snow fall regions across North America, across most of the Rockies, into the plains, and even some scattered areas across the Great Lakes, but very deep snow across interior New England. And here's our forecast. It does look like anywhere from Utah and Colorado, eastward across northern Missouri, through the Ohio Valley and interior New England, likely to probably a white Christmas across those areas, but unlikely across the deep south, across the coastal areas of California into western Washington, where you would normally expect white Christmases being extremely rare, and it does look like this year will be no exception to the rule. Here's our flow pattern outlook as we go through December the 26th through January 2nd. Higher than normal pressure shifts southward down towards the Gulf Coast, but notice the big block setting up across the eastern Pacific, across northern North America, with lower than normal pressure across the northern plains, southern Canada, including the Great Lakes area. There's our main storm track extending from the Yukon Territory southeastward down towards the central Rockies, mid-Mississippi Valley, and then right off the New England coast. Much colder than normal temperatures look like we'll be flooding southward down into the lower 48. Temperatures maybe as much as 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. Could be as cold, but right now down towards the Gulf Coast we're forecasting about 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit below normal down there. The only milder than normal temperatures will be across Alaska and across extreme eastern Canada, where there could be as much as 10 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Unsettled conditions across the Rockies and plains, the deep south and eastern seaboard, drier than normal across most of the west, and even a small area across the mid-Mississippi Valley. And this is something we're going to be watching really closely. It does look like there's going to be a higher than normal risk for some accumulating ice and snow and maybe even a major winter storm system as we go through this time frame, and that does include the northern part of the deep south from North Texas over towards northern Alabama and Georgia up through the Atlantic seaboard and into southeast Canada, including most of the Canadian maritime provinces. So we'll be watching that very closely with time. Here, our overall January outlook: below normal temperatures east of the Rockies over towards the eastern seaboard, above normal across most of the California area into the Great Basin, including most of central and northern Canada. Precipitation outlook for January: below normal across the lower Mississippi Valley over towards the Great Lakes into southeast Canada, above normal on the Atlantic seaboard over towards northern Florida, also below normal across a large part of the northwestern United States, including much of the Pacific coast. As far as our temperature outlook through late winter to early spring, below normal from the eastern Rockies over towards the east coast, maybe as much as 5 degrees Fahrenheit below normal from Texas over towards the Ohio Valley, above normal across most of California and across central and northern Canada as well. Precipitation outlook: above normal across southern California over towards the central Rockies down to the northern Mexico, across parts of the deep south, but below normal from central and northeast Texas, northward across the mid-Mississippi Valley, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and over towards New York State and Pennsylvania. Most of northwestern North America into southwest Canada, above normal precipitation expected there. There's our main storm track across northern Mexico into the Gulf Coast region. That's where we're going to see some enhanced precipitation across those areas. As we go through the spring months, it does look like below normal temperatures across parts of Texas into northern Mexico, above normal from California to Washington, eastward across the upper Mississippi Valley, across parts of southeast Canada as well, maybe as much as 3 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit above normal across those areas. Precipitation above normal across most of the deep south into Texas, below normal though across the upper Mississippi Valley, across the Great Lakes into southeast Canada, near normal across most of the Rockies. And there's that southern storm track again, and being enhanced by a weak to moderate El Nino across the deep south, enhancing the precipitation there. Here's our hazard concerns across North America. Bitterly cold temperatures at times down towards the northern plains and upper Mississippi Valley. Could see air temperatures dropping down at times to minus 20 to maybe minus 30 or colder, with wind chill readings down to minus 50 for some brief periods of time across that area. So something to be aware of as we go through the prime part of winter. Higher than normal snowfall risk from the central and northern plains over towards the Great Lakes and northeast. Even though some of these areas were forecasting below normal precipitation, snowfall overall I think will be higher than normal across these regions. Even a blizzard risk across the plains over towards the mid-Mississippi Valley and upper Mississippi Valley. And down south, we really need to watch out for this. There's a higher than normal risk for some wintry weather, accumulating ice and snow at times. So you folks from Dallas over towards San Antonio and Houston over towards Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Alabama, Atlanta, Georgia, and Charlotte, North Carolina, watch out. There could be at times some accumulating ice and snow that will produce some very hazardous driving conditions. And coastal hard freeze risk is definitely a possibility from Texas over towards northern Florida. Could also see a continuation of the extended drought down towards California into western Oregon, just due to the fact it's been so dry. Even though they may see some more precipitation at times this winter, it's just been so dry that I think that the drought conditions will likely continue across that area. And this particular map shows that what we're talking about. Anywhere you see that red or deep red shading, that's either extreme drought or exceptional drought conditions across California into western Nevada and southern Oregon, across northwest Texas into western Oklahoma as well. You see a very similar pattern. This particular map put out by the Weather Service, though, does indicate maybe some improving conditions. I think that's mainly going to be restricted across southern California, but at times across northern California we'll see improving conditions represented by that green and kind of peach shading. Even over towards Texas, improving conditions, but continued drought conditions across parts of the interior, Rockies, over towards parts of the Central Plains. Soil moisture anomalies below normal across the deep south, above normal represented by the green shading in the northern Rockies. I do think, though, we'll see improving conditions across the deep south with some enhanced winter rain and maybe at times some ice and snow, particularly across the northern deep south as we go through the winter season. So, Dave, that wraps it up. There was a lot of information I covered, and there's probably some questions, so we'd be more than happy to answer those right now.
Indeed, Fred, we do have some questions. The first question is about El Nino. You mentioned in your presentation weak to moderate. Now, we have El Nino conditions out there, and typically what that means is, especially with an enhanced southern jet stream, we see a lot of rain across the southern states. So in terms of the forecast itself, when you mention weak El Nino or moderate El Nino or just El Nino, how does that change the forecast from weak to moderate to regular?
Yeah, that's a very good point, very good question. Typically when we mean a weak El Nino, we're talking about temperature anomalies about 0.5 to 1 degree centigrade above normal. That's roughly 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit. You get above 1 degree centigrade, that's considered moderate to even strong if it gets to be about 1.5 degrees centigrade above normal, or about 3 degrees Fahrenheit. And a stronger El Nino will generally start to dominate the pattern more and more. The southern storm track takes over. It's harder to get colder air down. It's when you have those weaker El Ninos, you get the combination of not only the enhanced southern stream moisture, but you can at times get very cold air head southward into the lower 48. So that's the type of pattern we're looking at, but also the position of this El Nino is very important. It's across the central Pacific rather than the eastern Pacific, and that typically will bring colder air southward because it enhances the eastern trough. So we have a combination of the worst possible scenario with colder temperatures and an enhanced southern storm track.
Thank you, and I do want to clarify that when you mentioned the temperatures, you talked about 0.5 or 0.7 or 0.8 degrees above normal. That's not air temperature. That's water temperature of the Pacific Ocean.
Yes, that is true, Dave. Very good point. That is the water temperature anomalies, and those are very critical in making these forecasts.
Excellent. The next question is about drought. Now, you showed the drought monitor graphic, which showed California in still extreme drought conditions. And so the question is about the drought, and perhaps people are surprised that with all the rain over the last month that California has experienced, it's really going to take another couple of years of regular rainfall, continued regular, not rainfall like we've seen over the last 3 years, I think, but regular rainfall. It's going to take several years for that to eliminate the drought condition.
Yes, that's a very good point, Dave. Even though they have seen some enhanced rainfall, very beneficial during the first half of December, and they may at times during this winter, it's been so dry for so long, as Dave wisely pointed out there, it's going to take quite a spell of time, 6 months to a year, perhaps longer, before things can get back to normal. And we really need that snowpack across the Sierra for 2 or 3 seasons to be moderate to high to get California out of that drought.
One of the things I do here in addition to the webinars is I write for our blog. We have a blog here at yourweatherblog.com, and the most recent entry is about exactly that subject. Rain, compacted, dry soil that is less able to accept the heavy rainfall, and the snowpack. So if you're interested in that, yourweatherblog.com. The next question, and I know you'll chuckle, is about the hurricane season. We are still 7 months away from the hurricane season, but perhaps you can talk about that. The question actually was not only about a quick look at the early Atlantic tropical season, but the November, well, let's just say all of the 2014 Pacific hurricane season has been active. How will that change as we go into the coming year?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Dave. Yeah, as far as the conditions that created the tropical activity in the Eastern Pacific, of course, that's long past, long gone. The part of the reason why we saw so much activity in the Eastern Pacific was we had so little activity in the Atlantic Ocean. We're still dealing with a lot of dry air and some wind shear across that area. So basically, your energy source was shifting farther to the west into the Eastern Pacific. As far as those players that created that enhanced activity in the Eastern Pacific, it's not going to have much of a factor on this year's winter weather pattern. There's other things we're looking at, particularly the water temperature anomalies, the developing El Nino across the Central and Eastern Pacific. But that could be a factor next year and the years to come. I do think the Atlantic season may try to get back to a little bit closer to normal next year, but we could see a very similar pattern next year with enhanced activity again across the Eastern Pacific.
All right, thank you, Fred. We're going to wrap that up. That's three questions, three very good questions, and I think most of the questions regarded the El Nino, so I think we're in good shape by addressing most of the questions. Our next webinar has not yet been scheduled. However, we have selected a date. It will be February 12th. You can stay on top of all of our activities, including our webinars here at impactweather.com/events. Check that either probably later today or tomorrow, and I think that next webinar will be scheduled. But I will, if you're in our database, and you are, if you're attending this webinar, I will have that emailed to you so you can register through that email rather than having to check in on our webpage every day. But as I mentioned, it'll be February 12th, which is a Thursday, and we'll start it on, or rather, excuse me, start it at 10:30. And I know Fred will talk about the winter season, the continuing winter season, but maybe he'll talk about the tropical season. He's giving me the evil eye, so maybe I should say perhaps we'll talk about the winter season or the tropical season at our next webinar. But February, it's time to start looking ahead. But again, our impactweather.com/events. And by the way, I will send an email with the recorded version, a link to the recorded version of this seminar. So if you're registered and you're listening, you will get that. Don't forget, you can follow us at impactweather.com, but also Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're on all of those sites. The latest updates and announcements about our webinars and events are there. As a reminder to our clients, you can receive the latest news about potential weather threats as they develop by way of your online personalized weather website, which will grant you access to our exclusive videos, forecasts, models, and alerts. If you're not a client and you would like to learn more about how we can enhance your business continuity plans through our site-specific weather forecasting and risk mitigation best practices, please contact us by emailing sales@impactweather.com, and an industry manager will be in touch with you quickly to address your weather-related business threats. Before we break away, let me ask that you take a few moments to answer the post-webinar survey. There are 5 questions there, and we hope that that will enhance your webinar experience in the future. So that'll wrap it up. On behalf of all of us here at Impact Weather, I'm Dave Gorham. I would like to thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar again, February 12th. Until then, have a safe and productive winter season. Enjoy your upcoming holidays. It's next week. Christmas is next week already, so enjoy that. Stay warm, stay safe, stay dry. Bye-bye.